Hey, I'm CircleStrafe, and this is the third episode of my Dante's Inferno rundown. In the last episode we went through circles 2 and 3, which was lust and gluttony. Today what we're going to do is go through circles 4 and 5. Before we get going, in the last episode we talked a little bit about Dante and what his motivations were with writing this poem. Today what we're going to do is talk a little bit about Virgil, and why Dante chose Virgil to be his guide through hell. Virgil was an ancient Roman poet, and he lived around the 1st century BC. He was born and he lived in what is modern-day Italy. In the Inferno specifically, Virgil is a soul destined to spend eternity in limbo, a realm of virtuous sinners. There's a few reasons why Dante chose Virgil to be his guide through hell. First off, Dante really revered Virgil. In the very first meeting, Dante even refers to Virgil as his teacher and his author. He constantly refers to Virgil as my master throughout the poem as well. Virgil is to Dante a kind of muse of logic and wisdom, and at the time Virgil was also quite famous in Italy. The second reason Dante chose Virgil to guide him through hell is because of his work on the Aeneid. Virgil's Aeneid mirrors Dante's Inferno quite closely. What Virgil was trying to do with his work was fairly allegorical. One of the most metaphorical sections is probably when Virgil's characters pass into the underworld. The path of his characters consists of passing by crowds of the dead on the banks of the river Acheron in the underworld. They then get ferried across that river by Charon. Soon after that they meet Cerberus. If this is starting to sound very familiar, then you can understand why. Because of Virgil's past work, Dante is utilising Virgil as an authority figure over the knowledge of hell's inner workings. In this part, pay special attention to how Virgil treats sinners, and how commanding he is whilst doing so. Whilst heading over to the 4th circle of hell, Dante encounters the demon of wealth in his Inferno, Plutus. Plutus is screaming bloody murder for Satan in a tongue almost unrecognisable from human speech. He is animal-like and beastly to look at. Plutus guards the circle of the Avaricious and the Prodigal. Dante becomes frightened and Virgil reassures him. He tells him that there's no power the demon has which can stop them. Virgil yells at Plutus,
"Make way, cursed wolf."
At the mention of these words, Plutus collapses into a heap. Dante compares Plutus to the sails of a ship that have lost their wind. Passing by Plutus, the poets enter into the 4th circle proper. Inside the 4th circle is a gigantic battlefield of sinners. The sinners have been so badly tortured that they are almost unrecognisable to the poets. There are 2 sins being punished here as one. There's the avaricious, who hoard wealth with great greed, and there's the prodigal, who recklessly spend with no moderation. The 2 sets of sinners are forced to push huge heavy weights around the circle with their chests, forever. They smash their weights into sinners of the opposite group, and as the 2 sets collide, they exchange insults.
Why do you squander? Why do you hoard?
In contrast to Dante's former thoughts and feelings over the sinners in previous circles, Dante is rather cold about the punishments these sinners have to endure. It demonstrates his callous feelings towards these sins especially. Dante notices that some of the sinners are clergymen from their shaved heads. He seeks confirmation from Virgil, which Virgil gives. This is a huge reference to Dante's opinion on the state of the church, seeing some of its members in hell for greed and reckless spending. Virgil insults both sets of sinners. He says,
"They are getting what they deserve, hoarding and squandering so much that now no amount of gold can save them."
Dante continues his questioning and asks Virgil what fortune actually means. Virgil states,
"Fortune is God's manager of material wealth on earth, managing wealth evenly and fairly."
After they're finished speaking, the 2 poets head for the 5th circle, the Wrathful and the Sullen. Upon leaving Circle 4, the poets encounter black streams running down to muddy waters. These waters lead to a large black swamp of the marsh called Styx. Inside the shallower waters are the Wrathful, mud wrestling to rip each other's throats out. These are the souls that gave into anger and aggression in their lives. Virgil starts to talk about another hidden group of sinners called the Sullen. The Sullen sit below the mud that Dante can see. They're the bad-tempered, the gloomy, the depressed. They're forced to recite endless hymns in the mud, those hymns only appearing as gurgled nothings on the surface. The poets start walking along the rivers leading to the Styx. They begin approaching a tower. Dante describes that the tower acts much like a lighthouse, drawing the two poets in. The tower has let off a signal to Styx's other shore. Before the tower, in the water, sits a small flicker of light, which Dante asks Virgil about. Virgil tells Dante to focus, and the image of a boat becomes clear. Sat in the boat is a ferryman named Phlegyas. He reacts much like Charon, a bit off-put by the two travelling poets. Eventually Virgil uses his commanding influence of heaven again, like he has done before, and both poets get on the boat. The boat pushes off from the shore and enters a channel through the Styx. Wrathful sinners still line the way through the marsh. One of them looks up to the boat and steps out ill-tempered to meet it. The next exchange Dante has is extremely important. Dante comes face to face with the soul of a black Guelph and one of his rivals, Filippo Argenti. Filippo was a very wealthy political leader in Florence during Dante's time. He was notorious for his iron fist and aggression. Dante proclaims to the soul that he wishes the black Guelph will be in misery and suffering for all eternity. Virgil steps in and compliments Dante with a biblical scripture. The implication is that Dante is finally beginning to learn his lesson about sin, that the sinners are not to be pitied. Virgil says to Dante,
"You will understand true righteousness at the end of the water."
The ferryman hurls Filippo out of the boat's path, and the black Guelph is set upon by a group of other wrathful sinners. They tear Filippo apart as he bites himself angrily. Virgil points into the distance and says,
"We are about to enter the city of Dis."
Dante is in awe of how red the horizon is around the city. Noticing Dante's amazement, Virgil explains that the redness comes from an eternal hellfire within the city walls. He is indicating that whatever Dante has seen before, it is nothing compared to what's to come. The two poets disembark the boat and arrive on the shore of the city. Thanks for watching. That was part 3 of my Dante's Inferno rundown. Stay tuned for the next episode where we continue through the gates of Dis from Circle 5 and into Circle 6, the Heretics. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe. If there's anything in this you felt could have worked better, or if there's anything you'd like to know more about, feel free to comment and we can talk about it. Special shout outs to our voice actors in this part who brought the characters to life. You can find links to their stuff in the description. I'll see you in the next video. Toodles!